Welcome. Here we are at Dreamforce 14, and we have Maggie Buggie, who is VP Global Head of Digital Sales and Marketing. That's a heck of a title, by the way. Maggie.
Sure is.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. For Capgemini, and here we are at the kind of the apex of technology, innovation, SaaS, in this crazy VUCA world we live in, right? So one of the biggest questions I think a lot of our readership has is how has this change affected the buyer's behavior? How have they purchased from you and your clients differently over the past 12 to 24 months?
That's a great question, actually, because one of the big shifts that we've seen in the market, particularly over the last 12 months, is that being successful in digital transformation generally and customer experience in digital marketing specifically requires a much broader participation from the full board, as opposed to just having the buyer center being the CMO and or the CIO, or in some cases a mix of both.
The full board being the entire organization?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like we're seeing, for instance, the CFO is a much bigger stakeholder in the buying process, as is the Chief Operating Officer. And for me, this is all high fives all around, quite frankly.
Yeah, I like to hear it.
Because we're very clear at Capgemini that in order to drive business value and impact out of your digital marketing, customer experience initiatives, you need to gear the enterprise. So it's that balance between contextual view of your customer and all your front-end parts, and then building a single view of the enterprise. Otherwise, all you're going to do is massively increase your customer promise across all touch points, and then being stuck with a situation of hand-cranking that promise from an operational perspective.
No scale on that.
None whatsoever. And also, worst case scenario, it costs a bloody fortune.
Yeah.
So that balance between contextual view of your customer and single view of your enterprise. I like to talk about principles of successful digital transformation and successful customer experience. And one of them is really about there is no getting away from the heavy lifting of digital marketing. One of the biggest misnomers is that it's all simple and easy. It's not. From a customer and consumer perspective, it should be seamless, awesome, emotional, really easy and clean. But from an enterprise perspective, make no mistake, it takes a lot of effort to do that. And particularly in B2B, or fused B2C, B2B, which is what we're seeing a lot of now as well.
Sure. So, a lot there. I mean, there's so much to dig on. That was fantastic. I guess the first place...
I won't even charge you for that.
No, fantastic. I will borrow that, by the way. So, I think the first place is, so you talked a lot about the organization, and obviously the alignment around the organization, I think is absolutely key, which drives scale, which makes sure you are able to actually bring to the forefront the values and understanding you have with your customers. What about how those folks are actually changing their buying behavior? What are they doing differently than they used to do in the past?
You mean consumers and customers are buying
B2B.
centers?
Yes.
So for clients?
Yes, for clients.
Well, clients are an awful lot more well-versed in how to consume services from agencies and SIs and consultancies such as ourselves. And one of the things they really understand now is that there is a real business case to be made of creating better ecosystems that typically comprise of their agencies, because we all know most B2B customers now have their favorite agencies, particularly for the type of global clients that Capgemini works with. We're talking clients with multiple regions of operation and lines of business. So they get that it's really the right approach to build ecosystems that comprise their agencies, their SI partner, and often a lot of channel partners. And we're seeing that coming into the buying decision and the purchasing process, they're asking for an awful lot more from SIs such as ourselves in orchestrating those relationships. And the second bit I would add is
what are they asking for specifically?
Orchestration of services, so they want to contract very much on the outcome. And I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about the traditional, in cloud it's CapEx, OpEx. That's really, 5 years ago.
Sure.
It's part of the baseline business case and total cost of ownership across like the marketing estate and the enterprise estate. But in terms of the outcomes like do the digital initiatives, be they digital marketing initiatives or other initiatives, do they actually drive uplift in sales for the particular brand or across the particular touch point or cluster of touch points? We're looking at those type of KPIs being defined very much up front in the buying and contract process, whereas historically it was like, I need a platform to deliver me XYZ.
So part of your contracting actually involves sales performance metrics. You are able to deliver X number of incremental sales to an organization.
Of course. And that reflects both the growing maturity of buyers and also, quite frankly, for organizations such as ourselves, if we're not comfortable entering into that conversation, I'm not so sure you should be in this market because, it leads to much more interesting programs, and on a serious note, it helps our clients get to business benefit faster. Because in one of my other principles, which I also won't charge you for, is that digital and digital marketing, it's not a business objective in and of itself. It's not. They are enablers of achievement of business objectives. And when we talk about business objectives, we've got to get back down to what is the raison d'etre of most privately owned organizations, i.e. non-government agencies. It is to return shareholder value. And customer experience is part of that. And from our perspective, being very frank and pragmatic with our clients in both the buying, initial enablement and delivery phases, being clear about what we're trying to achieve, and it's decreasing time to market, it's increasing customer satisfaction, it might be building a global brand, it might be increasing brand equity, whatever it might be, we'd be very clear on those business objectives.
I love it.
Tech for its own sake is
not anymore, and I think that is the new world, especially the world we live in. Yeah, I like that. No longer. And it's no longer the world of aligning against hours, it's aligning against outcomes, right? And I think that's the biggest issue with agencies of the past, and the new agency of the future will thrive in those models. But you mentioned a couple of words which are interesting: frank, hard work, production, if you will.
Yes.
So talk to me about what are some of the key the key activities that you actually believe move the boulder up and down the hill, if you will, on behalf of your clients. What are the things that are actually moving digital marketing to actually produce those business outcomes you aforementioned?
That's a really good question, and not all of them are totally obvious. I find that often when we speak about digital marketing, an awful lot of people like to talk about the well understood aspects of it, namely around social, what I kind of tend to call the sexy parts of customer experience and digital marketing.
Messaging, social, display ads.
How we'll do all that. But the other part of that are how do you drive return on marketing investment? And if I think of one of our global consumer products companies who are really engaged in what I would call one of the most groundbreaking pieces of digital transformation and customer experience that is really transforming the media mix and the way in which they approach digital marketing. But one of their big lessons learned is that increased use of digital in the marketing function and for customer experience is completely changing the way in which they're interacting at global, regional and local clusters with external consumers. But that insight and the insight they're gaining from that is putting huge constraints on their technology processes, all those pieces that comprise the global operating model. And that is one of the really important pieces to answer your question of moving the boulder up and down. Really understanding that what you want to achieve with the consumer and using increased customer insight and how that relates to then campaigns and return on marketing investment. A lot of the pieces that drive the return on marketing investment now come from different parts of the organization, be it R&D, be it on-demand supply chain, be it HR, the way in which people interact, because we're very used in the digital marketing space to talk about next best action on behalf of consumers and customers.
Our channels or activities.
Exactly. But the other side of that coin is next best action on the part of employees. People still make it happen in digital marketing. So when I conceive of customer experience, I always conceive of a coin. And one side of that coin is customer experience. The other side of that better be employee experience. Because particularly within marketing functions, when you're introducing digital marketing, when you're changing the way in which you interact with your consumer and using data and insight, you've got to put a lot of time and effort into understanding the operating model that's going to support the customer promise that you're making. And be confident, can you deliver that customer promise profitably and at an appropriate cost?
That's an interesting angle you take, because this is an area we haven't explored yet. So are you suggesting then that the people behind actually the interaction with your customers is so important that you either need to align them based off of your differentiation in the market, or the values with which your brand is going to market?
I thought it's both those things. Okay. Because if you only do it on behalf of, say, how your brand is, the emotive and practical aspects and brand attributes that you have in the external market, that's the important part that we call outside in. But that has to be aligned with the why of the organization. I often say one of the biggest pitfalls of digital transformation and customer experience in digital marketing is it's human nature to jump immediately to what are we going to do and how are we going to do it. In general, most executives, we all fall into those pitfalls. What and how. The most important part is why. Articulating the why. And this is the fantastic part about, for people who love customer experience and marketing, a lot of those concepts that we've long applied to consumers and engaging with them, we're just going to shift those across now and apply those to employees and HR departments, because, it's that old adage, consumers are now in the organization. It's the shifting world of work. And you've got to marry those two together, otherwise you'll have no employees, and then you could have all the digital technology and great platforms and metrics and analytics that you like, but robotics don't in totality run a company. A company is made up of hearts, minds and souls of the people who choose to work for us.
I like it. Well said. And forgive me for going down this direction, but we are at Salesforce, which is a very metrics, analytics, insights-driven type environment. And I'm interested from your perspective, Maggie, of those folks who are doing it well, what types of data, what type of data are they looking at, and how are they extracting value from that data to drive prescriptive, to drive real business outcomes?
Why are you sorry for asking that question?
Well, we talked about hearts, minds, and souls. Now I move right into data, which is, the cold, hard facts of, digital technology marketing, if you will.
Yes, but as a marketer, you should remember that.
Of course.
Success is the union of those two
Absolutely.
things. Gut and fact. I'm not so sure there's a tagline there, but you know what I mean?
Well, we'll use it.
So, to answer your question, the measurement piece is absolutely fundamental, and the use of analytics. But organizations that don't have that as part of the marketing mix and the way in which value is recognized, and don't understand what are the specific nature of data, because remember, data is just data. And I hate that quote that was doing the rounds 2 years ago on data is like the new oil.
It's a new currency.
That's a whole load of bull, if you ask me. Insight and actionable insight is the new currency.
And those folks who can do that well are going to thrive.
Yes.
But what are you looking for? What are you looking at?
So we're looking for, in the external market, we're looking at aggregated social data. So across, if I think about one of our clients at the moment, we're looking at that aggregated social data. We're looking at sentiment analysis. We're also looking at POS data. And we're also looking at data coming out of physical store environment, if say you're a retailer, branches from like an insurance or a retail bank. And we're looking at those converged data sets with then market data, competitive data, not just the traditional segmented data. Because the simple factor with digital marketing is that the way in which we've historically conceived of segments and data sets isn't necessarily fit for purpose now. In the same way, so that's one part of it, those specific external data sets. And then the other part is, remember that piece over contextual view of the customer and single view of the enterprise? Marrying those data sets to the really relevant enterprise data sets, namely your performance data, your operational data coming out of your supply chain, and the holy grail of getting as close to on-demand supply chain as possible, HR data around worker performance, and all of merging those two together, because that's how you deliver a single view of the enterprise.
And I'm curious, just to kind of dig actually a level deeper, to get into even more tactical view of this, have you seen any really interesting outcomes from marrying those pieces of data together to drive insights that actually enable your organization and your brands to actually take action in a meaningful way?
Oh, of course. And
what would be a great example?
So one actually that I just heard last week, and I can't unfortunately share the client with you because it's confidential, but for one of their brands, their marketing team and agency team who were focused on this brand, they had a very negative use of something for the brand in the external market. And the marketing and agency team, based on their traditional data sets and insights, were about to invest millions of dollars in addressing what they thought was the big problem. And our digital marketing and massive data sets were in intelligence. We're able to say to them, you think based on your traditional view of the world and the way in which you historically used to look at brand equity and return on campaigns and the way in which you respond to issues, that money will be well served. But we know from our actual real-time intelligence from what your target customers for this brand, consumers for this brand are saying, that money, they don't care that much about it. And in that case, they were able to save millions of dollars they were about to put to addressing what they saw as a problem. But the real-time insight told them this should be a problem maybe for your consumers, but actually they don't care.
Interesting. So really empowering data-driven insights to make smart business decisions.
Yes.
I love it.
But why that was of value to that client was not because, they knew it. It was that once they found it out, they have geared their enterprise to be able to stop the agency and team working on it and redirect the effort and spend to a different campaign across like another aspect.
Which has a multiplier effect, right?
Exactly.
Saving lost money, putting it into efficient money.
That's the point. It's like marrying the insights, then okay, and what does that mean and what are you going to do? Otherwise, it's just, look, it's not interesting.
I love it. So, last question for you. If you had to recommend something that should be on the strategic roadmap of most B2B marketers over the next year or two that currently is not, what would you recommend they take another look at that's imperative that they weave into their strategic roadmap?
Only one thing. Oh my God. That culturally and practically, that's
you
difficult.
can give me two.
I'm an Irish person. Number one, we always have like a lot of things. Okay, so there are two things that marketers really need to be mindful of for success in their roadmaps. Is number one, that principle of the coin, customer experience, digital marketing, and the employee experience. Too often when I look at the roadmaps for a lot of marketing functions and departments, I'm not seeing enough time put into how the human element of supporting the change and how marketers need to work and their skill shift. So it might sound like a moot point, but that people and culture aspect must be on there. And secondly, I would definitely say insight and actionable insight, and then building the governance models and the supporting operating model to support actionable insight.
Yeah, I think most of the market struggles with that last one. How do you actually derive something of value and then take action on that in a meaningful way?
Totally, because the simple fact is most organizations are not geared to work cross-function. Yep. And then, we've got one client who's actually starts a discussion about something, which I'll leave you with, that is, for me, might well be the future. In that we're so used to conceiving of enterprises in the way that they have been articulated for hundreds of years. HR, marketing, supply chain, R&D. If you think about it, if you are creating a reality where you're marrying external data sets, your outside-in perspective, with enterprise data, do you actually even need functions? Do you not just need a customer-focused lens and then all the confidence, if you will, that you can gear your enterprise to respond to external changes and direct it wherever it's needed to groups of employees?
Talk about innovation, huh?
Well, maybe we need to write a white paper on that.
Maggie, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much, Paul.